A whisper in the void. Admiral Calveros gazed out of the observation deck of the Ecliptic Vanguard, a sprawling colossus of human engineering. Its sleek lines cut through the inky blackness of space, radiating an aura of quiet power. Around it, the Terran Defense Fleet stretched in a protective formation, a glimmering constellation of destroyers, frigates, and cruisers, each ready for war. Yet the vast emptiness before them seemed unnervingly calm. The faint hum of the ship's systems was the only sound, a reminder of the colossal fusion reactors thrumming deep within the ship's core. Cal's reflection stared back at him from the glass, graying hair at his temples and a face etched with years of responsibility. He was not a man prone to fear, but something about this mission gnawed at him. "Admiral," came the steady voice of his first officer, Commander Elena Drayton, as she approached. Her crisp uniform mirrored the discipline she carried in her every action. Long-range scanners have picked up anomalous readings near the Trident Nebula. Cal turned, his brow furrowing. "Define anomalous." Elena gestured toward the holographic display that bloomed into life before them. Streams of data scrolled past as she highlighted an expanding cluster of energy signatures. These fluctuations resemble neither natural phenomena nor known alien propulsion systems. They're dense, organized, but still unidentified. Cal studied the display, his mind already calculating. Humanity had encountered alien species before, but most were either peaceful explorers or technologically inferior civilizations. However, whispers of a powerful galactic coalition, the dominion of allied species, had been circulating for years, always unconfirmed, always dismissed as myth. "Are we certain it's not debris or a stellar anomaly?" Cal asked, more out of hope than expectation. Elena shook her head. "The energy patterns suggest deliberate movement, and they're converging on our outer colonies." The words hit Cal like a blow. Humanity's foothold in the stars was still fragile, its 12 colonies scattered across barely charted systems. If this was an attack, the consequences could be catastrophic. "Prepare the fleet for potential engagement," Cal ordered, his voice resolute. "Send a priority message to all colonies. Initiate evacuation protocols." Elena nodded, her composure unshaken. "Understood. Should we alert Earth Command?" Cal hesitated. Bureaucratic delays could cost precious time. "Not yet. We'll deal with this ourselves for now." A new dawn of humanity. The fleet moved into high alert, the calm of routine replaced by the crackling energy of preparation. Every crew member aboard the Ecliptic Vanguard knew the stakes. For decades, humanity had pushed beyond its cradle, clawing its way to the stars with stubborn ingenuity, colonizing harsh worlds, surviving with limited resources, and defying the odds were their legacy. The ship's hangar bays came alive as fighters were prepped and loaded with advanced railguns and plasma torpedoes. Engineers fine-tuned the Vanguard's main cannon, a monstrous rail accelerator capable of punching through moons. Though Earth was still a relatively new player in the interstellar arena, its weaponry was nothing short of ingenious, built to compensate for their lack of numbers with raw destructive power. Cal made his way to the bridge, where the crew awaited his command. The main view screen displayed the fleet in perfect formation, their lights like stars moving in unison. "Report," he said as he took his seat. "Fleet operational readiness at 92%, Admiral," said Lieutenant Novak, the tactical officer. "Scouts report no further anomalies within immediate range." "Good," Cal replied, but his gut told him this quiet wouldn't last. "Launch a long-range probe toward the Trident Nebula. I want eyes on whatever's out there." "Aye, sir," Novak confirmed. The first contact. Hours passed with no sign of the mysterious energy signatures. The crew maintained a tense vigilance, every sensor and scanner working overtime. Then, without warning, the fleet's sensors screamed in unison. "Admiral, massive spatial distortions detected," Novak barked. Cal shot to his feet. On screen, the view screen flickered, revealing a gaping tear in the fabric of space. From within emerged a vessel of staggering proportions. It was larger than any human ship by an order of magnitude, its black hull adorned with glowing veins of azure light. Its design was alien and predatory, lacking the symmetry and functionality of human craft. This was no scout or freighter. It was a warship. Cal's breath caught in his throat. Identify it. Elena leaned over her console, her hands moving rapidly. No matches in the database. Whatever this is, it's not from any known species. The alien ship hovered in the distance, an ominous presence against the void. It made no attempt to communicate, nor did it seem interested in retreating. Send a hailing frequency, Cal ordered. Let's see if they'll talk. The bridge fell silent as the message was transmitted. Seconds stretched into an eternity. Then the alien ship responded, not with words, but with action. A searing beam of energy lanced from its hull, obliterating one of the human scout ships in a flash of light. Shields up, Cal shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. The bridge erupted into controlled pandemonium. The alien vessel's weaponry was unlike anything humanity had encountered. Its energy beams bypassed traditional shielding, tearing through the Vanguard's defensive perimeter like paper. Humanity's resolve. Despite the overwhelming odds, the fleet retaliated with precision. Fighters swarmed the alien vessel like wasps, unleashing salvos of missiles and railgun fire. The Ecliptic Vanguard brought its main cannon to bear, firing a round so massive that it caused the entire ship to shudder. The projectile struck the alien vessel, creating a visible dent in its armor. But the enemy ship retaliated with devastating efficiency, taking out 2 more cruisers with surgical strikes. Cal gripped the armrest of his chair, his mind racing. They were outmatched in raw firepower, but he refused to let fear dictate their actions. Humanity had faced impossible odds before and survived through creativity and adaptability. Elena, he said, his voice calm amidst the chaos. Find me a weak point. Anything we can exploit. She nodded, her fingers dancing across her console. Working on it. Cal turned to Novak. Order the fleet to spread out. Keep them moving. We need to buy time. The tactical officer relayed the command, and the human ships broke formation, adopting the hit-and-run strategy. It was a desperate move, but desperation was a hallmark of human survival. As the battle raged on, Cal couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The alien ship wasn't just testing their defenses. It was testing their resolve. And resolve, Cal thought grimly, was one thing humanity had in abundance. The battle of ingenious minds. The battle continued to rage as the alien ship proved to be an unrelenting force. Despite their advanced tactics, the human fleet struggled to adapt to the overwhelming power of the adversary. Explosions flickered across the darkness like tiny supernovas as ships on both sides exchanged relentless fire. Admiral Calveros stood at the heart of the chaos, his command station on the Ecliptic Vanguard bathed in red warning lights. He gripped the edge of the console, his mind racing for a solution. The sheer size and resilience of the alien vessel made it a near-impossible target to destroy, and each passing moment tilted the scales further out of their favor. Admiral, Elena's voice cut through the din, steady but urgent. I've identified an energy fluctuation near what appears to be their central propulsion system. It's faint, but it could be a vulnerability. Cal turned sharply. How sure are you? Not sure enough, she admitted, her brow furrowed. But it's consistent with a core reactor venting system. If we can hit it, we might disrupt their power output, even if only temporarily. Cal's eyes narrowed as he processed the information. Novak, patch me through to the fleet. The tactical officer nodded, and moments later, the fleet's commanders appeared on the comms grid. Cal's voice carried an air of authority and determination. Attention all ships. We've located a potential weak point in the alien vessel's propulsion system. I want all fire concentrated on the coordinates we're transmitting. Focus your efforts. This is our best chance. A calculated gamble, The fleet responded swiftly, their formation shifting like a school of fish evading a predator. Fighters and frigates dived toward the target coordinates, unleashing volleys of torpedoes and railgun rounds. Larger ships, including the Ecliptic Vanguard, provided covering fire, drawing the alien ship's attention. Kale watched the tactical display intently. The alien ship's countermeasures were brutal, shredding human vessels with surgical precision. Yet, for every loss, the fleet inched closer to its goal. "Alina," Kale called, "status of their defenses." "They're focusing more fire on the flanking ships," she replied. "But the venting fluctuation is becoming more pronounced. If we keep this up, we'll have a shot." Kale clenched his fists. Humanity's ingenuity had always been its greatest weapon. But would it be enough against an enemy this advanced? The turning point. As the fleet pressed its attack, the alien ship unleashed a new weapon. A cascade of shimmering energy pulses erupted from its hull, rippling outward in concentric waves. Several smaller human ships were caught in the blast, their shields collapsing under the onslaught. "Energy pulse detected," Novak shouted. "It's disrupting our targeting systems." Kel's mind raced. If they couldn't lock onto the target, their plan would fall apart. Then, an idea struck him, an unconventional solution born of necessity. "Redirect the targeting systems to manual override," he ordered. "We'll calculate trajectories the old-fashioned way." Alina hesitated. Manual targeting on a moving vessel of that size. The margin for error is too small. "I know," Kale interrupted, "but it's better than doing nothing." The bridge crews sprang into action, inputting calculations manually. Meanwhile, the Ecliptic Vanguard adjusted its position, aligning its main cannon for a critical strike. "Target locked," Alina said finally, her voice taut with tension. Kale nodded. "Fire." The ship shuddered as the cannon discharged, its payload screaming through space. The projectile struck the alien vessel near its propulsion core, piercing the armor with a thunderous explosion. A ripple of energy cascaded across the enemy ship's hull, and for the first time, its movements faltered. Humanity's moment of resilience. Cheers erupted on the bridge, but Kale held up a hand to silence them. "It's not over yet," he said grimly. "Focus fire on that breach. We need to keep the pressure on." The fleet rallied, their attacks coordinated and relentless. The alien ship, though weakened, fought back with a ferocity that defied comprehension. Each move it made seemed calculated, almost sentient, as if it were learning from the battle. Alina's voice broke through the tension. "Admiral, their energy output is dropping, but I'm detecting a massive buildup near their central array. I think they're preparing a final strike." Cal's jaw tightened. "What's the estimated impact radius?" "If they release it, it could wipe out the entire fleet," she said, her tone grave. Kale closed his eyes for a brief moment, weighing his options. There was no time for hesitation. "All ships, pull back to minimum safe distance. Alina, prepare the Ecliptic Vanguard for an emergency maneuver." Alina's eyes widened. "You're not planning to." "We're the only ship with the firepower and shielding to take this shot," Kale said firmly. "And we're the only chance the fleet has. Sacrifice and survival." As the fleet retreated, the Ecliptic Vanguard surged forward, its engines roaring at maximum output. Kale felt the weight of his decision, but there was no room for regret. Humanity's survival depended on their ability to take risks. "Alina," he said softly, "if this doesn't work—" "It will," she interrupted, her voice unwavering. "Because it has to." The alien ship's central array began to glow, its energy buildup reaching critical levels. Kale gave the order. "Fire everything we have." Now, the Ecliptic Vanguard unleashed its full arsenal, railgun slugs, plasma torpedoes, and energy beams converging on the enemy's core. The impact was catastrophic. The alien ship's array erupted in a blinding explosion, its shockwave rippling through space. When the light faded, the alien vessel was gone, reduced to drifting debris. The fleet was battered but intact, and for the first time in hours, Silence returned to the void. A fragile victory. Cale slumped back in his chair, exhaustion washing over him. The bridge crew looked at him with a mixture of relief and respect. Elena approached, her expression softening. "We did it," she said quietly. Cale nodded, though his heart was heavy. This wasn't just a battle. It was a message. Whoever sent that ship, they'll know what happened here. Elena's gaze hardened. "Then we'll be ready." Cale looked out at the stars, a newfound determination burning within him. Humanity had faced the unknown and survived. But the war was far from over. "Prepare the fleet for repairs and resupply," he said finally. "We've bought ourselves time. Let's use it wisely." The crew dispersed, their spirits buoyed by the victory, however fleeting. Cale remained at the observation deck, staring into the vast expanse. The stars held countless mysteries, and he knew this was only the beginning of a much larger struggle. The shadow beneath the stars. The ecliptic vanguard drifted silently amidst the scattered wreckage of the alien vessel, its hull scorched but intact. The surviving ships of the fleet had regrouped nearby, their crews working tirelessly to repair damaged systems. The atmosphere was one of uneasy relief. A victory had been won, but at a cost that weighed heavily on everyone. Admiral Calveros stood in the briefing chamber, a dimly lit room dominated by a holographic table displaying the remnants of the alien ship. Flanked by his senior officers, he stared at the flickering image of the enemy craft's shattered remains, deep in thought. "We've identified traces of their core technology," Commander Elena Drayton said, breaking the silence. She tapped a control panel, and the display zoomed in on a glowing fragment of alien material. "Their propulsion systems and weaponry are centuries ahead of anything we've encountered." Cale crossed his arms, his brow furrowed. "What about their origin? Any clues?" Elena shook her head. "Not yet, but we've picked up an encoded signal buried in the debris. It's faint, but it seems to be transmitting to a distant location." Cal's eyes narrowed. "A distress beacon." "Possibly," she replied. "If that's the case, whoever sent this ship will know what happened here." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. This battle might have been the first strike in a far larger conflict. A hidden message. Lieutenant Novak, the fleet's tactical officer, cleared his throat. "Sir, there's another issue. During the battle, our long-range sensors detected anomalies in the surrounding sectors. It's possible there are more of these ships, or worse, an entire fleet, lurking nearby." Cale nodded grimly. "We can't afford to stay here any longer. Begin preparations for a full retreat to the Lyra 7 outpost. We'll regroup there and analyze the data." As the officers moved to execute his orders, Elena lingered. "Admiral, there's something else. The encoded signal. It's not just a beacon. It's a message." Cale turned to her, intrigued. "Can we translate it?" "We've only deciphered fragments so far," she said, "but the language structure is odd. It's almost as if it's designed to be understood by multiple species." Cale leaned over the table, studying the fragmented translation. The words that appeared were chilling in their simplicity. "The Dominion watches. Resistance is futile. Surrender or be extinguished." The room grew colder as the message sank in. Cale straightened, his expression hardening. "Send this to Earth Command immediately. They need to know what we're up against." Elena hesitated. "And the fleets, sir, should we inform them?" Cale shook his head. "Not yet. We can't afford to sow panic. Let's focus on getting to Lyra 7. A desperate escape." The fleet moved swiftly, engines roaring as they prepared to leave the battlefield. The ecliptic vanguard led the way, its battered hull a testament to humanity's resilience. But as the jump drives powered up, the faint hum of the ship's sensors turned into an urgent wail. "Admiral." Novak's voice was sharp. "We've got multiple signatures closing in fast. 5. No, 7 vessels entering the system." Cal's stomach dropped. On screen, The view screen lit up with the image of 7 alien ships emerging from hyperspace. Unlike the first vessel, these were smaller and more streamlined, but their weapon arrays glowed with an ominous light. "Full alert," Kale barked. "Prepare for immediate engagement." Elena's fingers flew across her console. "Admiral, if we engage here, we risk losing the entire fleet. The jump drives need at least 2 more minutes to fully charge." Kale clenched his fists, his mind racing. 2 minutes felt like an eternity in the face of such overwhelming odds. Deploy all fighters. Keep them at bay long enough for the fleet to escape. The hangar bays of the human ships erupted with activity as squadrons of fighters launched into the void. Pilots, their faces grim with determination, formed a protective wall between the fleet and the approaching enemy. Humanity's tenacity. The alien ships wasted no time, their weapons blazing as they closed the distance. Human fighters darted through the chaos, evading beams of energy while returning fire with railguns and missiles. Explosions lit up the darkness as both sides took losses. On the bridge of the Ecliptic Vanguard, Kale monitored the battle with laser focus. "Status on the jump drives," he demanded. 60 seconds, Novak replied, sweat beading on his forehead. "Hold the line," Kale ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos. Elena glanced at him, her expression both fearful and defiant. "Admiral, if this is the Dominion, they're not just testing us. They're trying to overwhelm us." Kale met her gaze. "Then let's show them what happens when they underestimate humanity." A bold maneuver. As the alien ships pressed closer, Kale made a daring decision. Redirect power from the auxiliary systems to the main cannon. Target their lead ship. Elena hesitated. "Sir, that will leave us vulnerable." "Do it," Kale said firmly. "If we can take out their leader, it might disrupt their coordination." The crew obeyed, rerouting every ounce of power to the cannon. The Ecliptic Vanguard trembled as the weapon charged, its barrel glowing with deadly energy. "Target locked," Novak reported. Kel's voice was like steel. "Fire." The cannon roared, releasing a projectile that tore through the void. It struck the lead alien ship with devastating force, reducing it to a cloud of debris. The remaining ships faltered, their formation breaking as they adjusted to the loss of their leader. "Jump drives at full power," Elena shouted. Kale didn't hesitate. "All ships, execute jump sequence now." The fleet disappeared into hyperspace, leaving the battlefield behind. The unknown awaits. Moments later, the Ecliptic Vanguard and its surviving ships emerged in the relative safety of the Lyra 7 system. The crew let out a collective sigh of relief, but Kale knew this was only a temporary reprieve. Elena approached him, exhaustion evident in her eyes. "We made it, but for how long?" Kale stared at the distant stars, his expression unreadable. "Long enough to prepare. We need to figure out who, or what, the Dominion is, and we need to be ready when they come again." As the fleet began repairs, Kale turned his thoughts to the larger mystery. The Dominion's message was clear, but humanity had never been one to bow to threats. If the Dominion wanted to extinguish them, they'd have to face the full fire of human ingenuity and determination. Kale smiled grimly. The stars may hold countless dangers, but humanity was no stranger to defying the odds. Secrets of the Dominion. The Ecliptic Vanguard floated in the tranquil expanse of the Lyra 7 system, its scarred hull a testament to humanity's defiance. Around it, the surviving ships of the fleet worked tirelessly to repair their damage. Inside the command center, Admiral Calveros stood before a table displaying a holographic map of the galaxy. His senior officers were gathered, their faces etched with exhaustion and grim determination. The encoded signal from the alien ship had been partially deciphered, and what little they had uncovered sent shivers through the room. "This is what we've pieced together," Commander Elena Drayton began, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. The holographic table flickered to life, displaying a sequence of alien symbols interspersed with translated text. "The Dominion isn't just a coalition. It's an empire, a vast network of species subjugated under a single rule. They see themselves as the ultimate authority in the galaxy. Cal's expression darkened as he studied the display. And what about the message they sent us? Elena hesitated, then highlighted a section of text. It's more than a warning. It's a statement of purpose. The Dominion doesn't tolerate resistance. Any species that defies them is either assimilated or eradicated. The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. Humanity, with its fledgling colonies and fragile alliances, had unknowingly stepped into the path of a juggernaut. A race against time. Cal broke the silence, his voice firm. How long before they respond to the destruction of their ships? Elena consulted her dev. Based on the signal's transmission speed, we estimate it could reach their nearest outpost within 72 hours. After that, it's only a matter of time before they send reinforcements. Cal's mind raced. 3 days to prepare, to rally their forces, to find a way to counter a threat that had already proven its superiority. It wasn't enough, but it would have to do. Then we need answers, Cal said. Novak, what's the status of the recovered debris? Lieutenant Novak stepped forward, his voice tinged with excitement. Our engineers have managed to isolate a piece of their propulsion core. It's unlike anything we've seen before. Some kind of hybrid technology combining quantum tunneling with gravimetric distortion. Cal raised an eyebrow. Can we replicate it? Not yet, Novak admitted. But we might be able to reverse engineer enough of it to improve our jump drives. It could give us an edge in mobility. Cal nodded. Do it, and prioritize analysis of their weapon systems. We need to know how to counter them. A spark of hope. Hours turned into days as the fleet worked tirelessly to repair and prepare. The engineers aboard the Ecliptic Vanguard made breakthroughs in understanding the alien technology, while analysts pored over the fragments of the Dominion signal. What they found painted a picture both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The Dominion spans hundreds of star systems, Elena reported during a strategy meeting. But their control isn't absolute. There are pockets of resistance, rebels who refuse to submit. Cal's eyes narrowed. Rebels? Where? Elena gestured to the holographic map, highlighting a cluster of systems near the galactic rim. These regions are marked as restricted zones in the Dominion's network. Our best guess is that these are strongholds for insurgent groups. Cal's mind churned with possibilities. Humanity couldn't stand alone against the Dominion, but if they could find allies, other species who had faced this threat, they might have a chance. Can we establish contact? He asked. Elena hesitated. It won't be easy. The Dominion monitors all interstellar communications. Any signal we send could lead them straight to us. Cal leaned forward, his expression resolute. Then we'll send a ship, a small, fast vessel capable of slipping past their patrols. Elena nodded. I'll put together a team. The mission begins. The decision was made quickly. A scout ship, the Orion Spear, was chosen for the mission. Its crew was handpicked from the best the fleet had to offer. Skilled pilots, engineers, and diplomats who could handle whatever awaited them on the other side of Dominion space. Cal stood on the hangar deck as the crew boarded the ship. He exchanged a final handshake with the mission commander, a seasoned captain named Marcus Reed. Your mission is critical, Cal said. Find the rebels. Bring back anything, anyone, that can help us. Humanity is counting on you. Reed nodded. We won't let you down, sir. The Orion Spear launched into the void, its engines blazing as it disappeared into hyperspace. Cal watched it go, his chest heavy with both hope and dread. The calm before the storm. As the fleet awaited news from the Orion Spear, preparations for the inevitable battle continued. The engineers succeeded in adapting parts of the alien propulsion system, giving the fleet's jump drives a modest but crucial boost in efficiency. Weapons were upgraded, shields reinforced, and tactics refined. Despite their progress, tension simmered beneath the surface. The crew knew they were facing an enemy far beyond anything humanity had encountered before, but they also knew what was at stake. For every soldier and scientist, every pilot and technician, this was more than a battle. It was a fight for survival. Cale spent long hours in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. He thought of Earth, of the 12 fragile colonies scattered across the void. He thought of his crew, their courage and sacrifices. And he thought of the Dominion, a shadow that loomed larger with each passing moment. Elena joined him one evening, her presence quiet but grounding. "Do you think we'll survive this?" she asked softly. Cale didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked out at the distant stars, his expression unreadable. Finally, he said, "Survival isn't guaranteed. But if we stand together, if we fight with everything we have, we might just change the rules of the game." A signal of hope. On the third day, a faint signal reached the fleet. It was encrypted, its origin unknown, but its content was unmistakable. "This is Captain Marcus Reed of the Orion Spear. We've made contact with the rebels. They're willing to help, but there's a cost." Cal's heart leaped at the news, even as he braced for the details. Whatever the cost, humanity would pay it. They had no choice. As the signal ended, Cale turned to Elena, a fire igniting in his eyes. "Prepare the fleet. If the Dominion wants a fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget." The room buzzed with renewed energy. Humanity had taken its first step toward forging an alliance, a spark of hope in the shadow of annihilation. The road ahead was perilous, but for the first time since the battle began, Cale allowed himself a glimmer of optimism. The fight was far from over, but humanity was just getting started. The rebel frontier. The Orion Spear sliced through hyperspace like a silver dart, its engines humming with a faint, eerie resonance. Captain Marcus Reed stood at the helm, his eyes scanning the console for signs of their destination. Beside him, Lieutenant Jonna Marlowe, the ship's engineer, monitored the experimental propulsion system with an intensity that bordered on obsession. "How's she holding up?" Reed asked, his voice low but steady. Jana shrugged without looking up. "Better than I expected. This alien tech is temperamental, but it's holding together, for now." Reed gave a short nod. The mission had pushed both man and machine to their limits, taking them deeper into uncharted territory than any human vessel had ever dared. Their destination was a star system marked on the Dominion's encrypted maps as a restricted zone, believed to house one of the few organized resistance groups left in the galaxy. Behind them, the crew worked in tense silence. Each member had been handpicked for their skill and resilience, but even the most seasoned among them felt the weight of their task. They weren't just explorers. They were humanity's ambassadors, venturing into the unknown to find allies in a war they could not win alone. "Dropping out of hyperspace in 3, 2, 1, announced Navigator Alex Grayson. The stars outside the viewport elongated, then snapped back into focus. Before them loomed the Charid system, dominated by a red giant star whose fiery glow bathed the surrounding planets in an ominous light. Orbiting one of the outermost planets was a sprawling debris field, the remnants of ships that had dared to challenge the Dominion. Reed frowned at the sight. Scanned the area. Any signs of life? Grayson worked the controls, picking up faint energy signatures. Could be a station or a hidden base. "Or a trap," muttered Jonna. Reed's jaw tightened. "Let's hope it's the former. Set course for the largest signal. Keep shields at full strength and weapons ready." A meeting in the shadows. The Orion Spear navigated carefully through the debris field, its sleek frame dodging mangled hulls and shattered satellites. At the center of the field, they found the source of the signal, a massive asteroid riddled with artificial structures. Dim lights glimmered from within, and faint power surges indicated operational systems. "Looks like a mining facility," Grayson said, "heavily modified." "Docking request denied," said Communications Officer Lai Feng. "But we're being scanned." "Stay calm," Reed ordered. "They're probably as nervous about us as we are about them." A crackling voice suddenly came through the comms. "Human vessel, identify yourself. This is restricted space. You have 30 seconds to respond before we open fire." "This is Captain Marcus Reed of the Orion Spear, representing the United Terran Defense Fleet," Reed replied. "We've come seeking an audience with the Resistance. We mean no harm." The line went silent. Then the voice returned, sharper and more suspicious. "What makes you think we're interested in helping humans?" Reed took a deep breath. "Because we share a common enemy. The Dominion won't stop with us. Sooner or later, they'll come for you too." Another pause, longer this time. "Then, dock at Airlock 7. Come unarmed. You'll get your audience." Reed turned to his crew. "Jana, Grayson, Lai, you're with me. Keep the engines running and be ready to leave at a moment's notice." The Resistance revealed. The docking procedure was tense but uneventful. The Orion Spear latched onto the asteroid, and the crew disembarked into a narrow corridor, lit by flickering lights. Armed guards awaited them. Tall, reptilian creatures with sleek armor and weapons that hummed with alien energy. Their leader, a scared and imposing figure, stepped forward. "I am Varric," the creature said in a guttural voice, "commander of the Free Clans. Follow me." The humans exchanged wary glances but complied. Varric led them deeper into the asteroid, through twisting tunnels and chambers bustling with activity. The Resistance was a patchwork of species, furred, scaled, and feathered beings working together in defiance of the Dominion. In the central chamber, they met the Council of the Resistance, a diverse group of leaders representing their fractured coalition. Varric gestured for silence as Reed and his crew stepped forward. "You've risked much to come here, human," said a wiry alien with 4 glowing eyes. "Speak quickly. Why should we trust you?" Reed stood tall, his voice unwavering. "Because we fought the Dominion and survived. We destroyed one of their ships and repelled their fleet. But we know we can't do it alone. Humanity needs allies. And so do you." The council murmured among themselves. Finally, Varric spoke. "The Dominion is relentless. They crush dissent without mercy. If we align with you, they will hunt us down even harder." "They'll hunt you down regardless," Jana interjected, her voice sharp. "But together, we can turn the tide. We have technology, resources, and determination. What we lack is experience. You've been fighting them longer than we have. Teach us how." The room fell silent as the council deliberated. Finally, Varric turned back to them. "We will help you, but there is a price." Reed nodded. "Name it." "There is a Dominion station in the nearby Jaxera system," Varric said. "It coordinates their patrols and supply lines in this sector. Destroy it, and we will consider your proposal." A mission of desperation. The Orion Spear departed the asteroid with renewed purpose, its crew energized by the possibility of forging an alliance. But the task ahead was daunting. The Dominion station was heavily fortified, its defenses designed to repel entire fleets. Reed gathered his crew in the briefing room. "This isn't just about us. If we succeed, we gain an ally who could turn the tide of this war. If we fail, we may lose our only chance." Jana studied the schematics of the station, her mind already working on a plan. "We'll need to exploit their blind spots. If we can get close enough to deploy a focused EMP, it could disable their defenses long enough for us to strike." "And if we get caught before that?" Lai Feng asked. Reed's gaze was steady. "Then we fight. We're not just fighting for humanity anymore. We're fighting for everyone who refuses to bow to the Dominion." As the Orion Spear approached the Jaxera system, the crew prepared for battle. Every system was fine-tuned, every contingency planned. They knew the odds were against them, but they also knew what was at stake. The stars outside glimmered with quiet indifference as the ship entered enemy territory, ready to face the Dominion once again.